part of both the math and engineering faculty, so we get to take courses from both of these faculties. And lastly, and arguably the most important part, is the co-op program. So how the co-op program works is every alternating term for 4 months, we have a co-op term. So in the co-op term, we apply to internships and we get to work at a company and see what it's like to actually do work in the industry. Yeah, so firstly, I'll talk about university applications and what the application process to Waterloo is like. So the most important part about the Waterloo application is grades. So here on the right, we can see a graph that shows the different application grades and like which percentage of them got in. So as you can see, for software engineering, which is the blue line, generally people have an average around 97 or above in order to get in. And okay, and how they calculate the average is they take your top 6 classes, your calculus, pre-calculus, physics, chemistry, English marks, and one other course. And they also have something called an adjustment factor. So based on people who've been to Waterloo from their school, they will gauge like how they do, and they'll adjust your marks accordingly based on how well past students do. So for example, if one school is very strong and all the students who graduate that school and go to Waterloo do well, then the Waterloo will remember that and be like, oh, this school is very strong, so they'll admit more people from that school. So other than grades, Waterloo also cares about extracurriculars, and they have a few essay prompts and also contests. So for extracurriculars, those are generally clubs, hobbies, and relevant coding experience. So for me, I was in North Byng's, most of their STEM clubs, like robotics, math, science, and some of the volunteering clubs, like I think Leaders of Hope and 3B Club, to name a few. For hobbies, my main hobby was piano. I've been practicing piano since I was grade 1, and I played in multiple piano competitions and recitals. So lastly, there's coding experience. So that's like any side projects you have, any competitions you have. And for me, I didn't have too much coding experience. I just had AP Computer Science, and also I did a CCC in grade 12. Next, they care about the AIF, which is the additional information form. There they ask you a few short answer questions. So yeah, be prepared to answer about why you want to go to Waterloo and like why you think you're prepared. And also there's a short video interview, and that one is also pretty standard. They just ask you again about why you want to go there, why you think you're prepared, and any relevant experiences you have. And lastly, there are contests. The main 2 contests that Waterloo cares about is Euclid for math and CCC for computer science. And yeah, those are what it looks at. So next, I'll talk about my university experience. So what are the differences between university and high school? Well, first of all, the course delivery is very different. In high school, they tend to hold your hand a lot more, and the teachers are supportive to every student. But in university, you generally have a lot more control about what you do, and they definitely don't hold your hand as much. So there are 3 types of courses, or like 3 types of classes that you might encounter. So lectures is basically where they dump information onto you. So it's like where they introduce the course content and basically teach you what they want to teach you. In tutorials, it's where a TA goes and solves some relevant practice problems to solidify your understanding. And in labs, it's a practical aspect that maybe applies what you have learned to the real world. Like, for example, for my circuits course, in the labs, we would maybe build a real circuit in real life, which is pretty cool. Another major difference is the course content. So obviously, it's much more time-consuming than high school, but more importantly, the courses emphasize critical thinking more. So in high school, I've noticed a lot of the practice might be like really similar. Like if you get homework problems, it's usually doing the same types of questions over and over. And on the test, you might see like a question that's also very similar to the homework. But in university, the practice is like requires much more critical thinking, and it challenges you to think outside of the box a lot more. So you need to take what you've learned during lectures, which is usually like just a minimum amount, and apply that information to solve new kinds of problems. And for me, I really like this format a lot more because honestly, like it's a lot more interesting than high school where you just solve the same problems over and over. And it's more fun that way to like be challenged. And the last difference is living alone. So obviously in high school, you're probably living at home and everything's taken care of. But in university, you have to set aside time to do everyday tasks like cleaning your room or doing your laundry, cooking, washing dishes, and things like that. So keep in mind these tasks. And also there is more social activity because everyone there is a student, and especially in student residences, everyone is pretty close together. Like there are usually activities that I have with like students in my own floor. Like for example, we had a Secret Santa event near Christmas. And also there are like different things you can do in the residences. Like for example, play ping pong in the lobby or like play pool. It's just a lot easier to get friends to hang out with. So that's pretty fun. And now I'll talk about some things I've learned that helped me succeed academically. So the first thing that's very important is to learn actively. So that means during lectures, you take notes and ask questions. And when the teacher like presents an example in class and tells everyone to do it, you're actually like doing it and not just listening and following along. Because I feel that taking the time to like think about what you're learning and absorb the info really helps you get a solid understanding of the content better. And at home, this means doing more practice and seeking resources to help you actually understand everything very well. Because as I said, in university, there's a lot more critical thinking. So if you're just like memorizing what the teacher tells you and copying down notes, you're not going to be able to do well. You need to actually really understand the concepts and be able to apply them in new contexts. The second point that's really important is managing time. This means starting assignments early and figuring out a time management system that works well for you. So this will be different for everyone. For me, what I found is I like blocking out specific chunks of time for just studying. And I don't really block out what I'm studying during that time, just like blocking out a time that's saying, oh, I'm going to be doing something productive in this period of time. And I feel like this system for me gave me the freedom to choose what I do when I want to, but also makes sure that I'm not slacking and being productive. The third point is managing your environment. So one aspect of that is making sure your study environment is good. So find a place that is quiet to study. You definitely don't want to be like, for example, if you have a dorm and like next door people are partying all day, that's probably not the best studying environment because it's going to be loud and you're not going to be able to focus. So I like going to the library to study because it helps focus a lot more. And also finding good people to study with is important, because if you're with people who are high achieving and motivated to work hard, you'll naturally feel more motivated to work hard yourself. And also your everyday environment is very important. And this part is overlooked sometimes, but make sure you're eating well and sleeping well, because these things will really affect you in the long term. Like, you don't want to be like having a lack of sleep while you're trying to like understand difficult concepts. And the last point that I have, and the most important point in my opinion, is to be resilient. And this might sound very cheesy, but like, just don't give up. Like, there are going to be days where you're maybe like up until 4 a.m. doing an assignment, or like there might be days where you go to lecture and you literally don't understand a thing. But like, make sure that doesn't knock you down. If you go to lecture and don't understand the thing, don't give up. Don't say, oh, it's just too hard for me. Like, actually go home and sit down and try to understand the thing that you're not understanding. And being resilient will help you a lot. And yeah, I think that's the one thing that will get you through university. So next, I'll talk about a day in the life of a software engineering student. I know it's pretty cheesy again, but honestly, it's not that interesting. I just wake up, I go to my classes. As you can see on the right, this is what my schedule looks like. So I have classes on and off, usually from like 8:30 a.m. to like 5 p.m. And after classes, I usually go to study with some friends. So we maybe go to the library or find some quiet place. And after, I eat dinner. And then after dinner, I have this block of time that I use for whatever. So if I need to study, I'm studying. If I don't feel like studying, I can use it to relax, or like do my laundry, do everyday tasks, or work on extracurriculars. And then after that time, I sleep. And yeah, that is a day in my life. Oh yeah, so one thing I wanted to show is a personal project that I worked on during my university times. So like, if you're asking what I do in my free time, this is one of them. So this app is an app that allows you to transcribe over the board chess moves. So I have a demo video here that I can show. Okay, I'm gonna turn the sound off. Okay, so here, as we can see, on the right side, we see a physical chessboard where I'm making moves. And then I'm using OpenCV, which is a computer vision library, and some machine learning to determine where all the chess pieces are. And after I make the move on the physical chessboard, you can see they're getting logged on the digital chessboard on the left. Yeah, I'll just let this run for a bit. Okay, so yeah, white got checkmated, very nice. Okay, so back to the presentation. Now I'll talk about some of the extracurriculars that I do. So I'm in a couple of student design teams, and those are basically engineering teams where students come together and try to make something, either for a competition or for some demo. So the first team that I'm on is Autonomous, which works on autonomous vehicles. And for me, I'm part of the object detection team. So I'm responsible for basically recognizing what kinds of objects are on the road. Like, for example, if it's a person or a bicycle or a road sign, traffic signs, things like that. And recently I worked on road sign association. So that's like, we have a LiDAR, which gives 3D bounding boxes of different objects that it detects, and also 2 cameras. You can see on the car, there's 2 cameras here that gives 2D bounding boxes of where objects are. So my task was to associate the LiDAR bounding boxes and the camera bounding boxes. And also I worked a bit on path planning. So that's like after you have all the information about the object and where they are, which routes should the car go to like go to the where it wants to go with the shortest distance while also following normal traffic rules. So the second team I'm on is called Waterloo, and that one works with neurotechnology. So the project that we're working on is a thought-controlled keyboard. So we have a screen of flashing lights at different frequencies. And when your eyes see those flashing lights at different frequencies, your brain has responds by having different electrical signals called SSVP. And we have this brain-computer interface machine thing, which is shown on the bottom image. And when you put that on your head, it tells you what those electric potentials are. And using those electric potentials and passing that through some machine learning models, we can figure out which light you are looking at. And using that info, we can make you operate a keyboard that way. So yeah, that will help people, disabled people, communicate. The third design team I'm on is UW Blueprint, which we're doing web development for nonprofits. So right now, the nonprofit program I'm working with is called Jump Math, and we're developing an assessment tool for them. So basically, they wanted a tool for students where when students first join the program, they can take a test and see which level they're at to gauge like which curriculum of Jump Math they should start with. And yeah, our team is trying to build that tool right now. As for hobbies, hobbies are a great way for me to unwind and do things I like. So the 2 clubs I joined is concert band club and chess club. And those hobbies, it's not a regular commitment for me. I just go there when I'd like to and have some fun. And another thing I want to mention are hackathons. So hackathons, if you don't know, are events where it usually takes up around 1 weekend or a few days, where students just make a project and pitch it to some judges. And I find that hackathons are very useful for exposure. It helps you learn new technologies and learn what can be done with these technologies. And looking at other teams, it's really inspiring to see what other people are doing and what can be done. Okay, so next, I have another video to show. This is a video from Autonomous, so the autonomous vehicle team that I'm in. So yeah, as you can see, this is the car that we're working on. You can see on the left is the simulation, and on the right is the actual camera footage of the car. So right now it's just turned and it's going on the road and it's staying on the right side. Oh yeah, a funny thing about this is if you're wondering why the trunk is open, I think they mentioned it's because during that time their computers got really hot, so they needed to open the trunk so it didn't overheat, which is pretty funny. So yeah, as you can see, the car successfully avoided these obstacles. And also there are more obstacles coming up. Yeah, and also there's a fake person there. So you will see the car stops for the fake person and waits for it to cross. And then the car goes again. Okay, so that's about all I wanted to show in this video. So hopefully you found that cool. I think it's pretty fun. So let's go next. So next I'll talk about internships and the experience I had with my first co-op. So what are some types of jobs in the software industry? Well, there are a lot of different types of jobs, so I'll just be listing a select few of them that I applied to. So the first one is just vanilla software engineering. And within that, there's different things like front end, back end, full stack, mobile, cloud, and like a lot more. So front end is typically like the things that you see on the website. So like, for example, if you go on Google, you can click different buttons, you have a search bar, and that's the front end. The back end is the hidden logic about like what happens when you click different things. Like, for example, if you go on Amazon and you click the buy button, like in the back, it's taking your info and it's also taking money away from you and also giving the money to the guy that you're buying from. So that logic is all in the back end. Full stack is basically working with both front end and back end. Mobile is for like phone applications. And cloud is for like cloud applications. And yeah, there's also data science, which is like machine learning and those types of things. And there's also quality assurance, which is sort of like testing and like making sure that their software works and is good quality. And yeah, as I mentioned, there's a lot more different types of jobs, but these are just a few of them. So what is the job search and interview process like? Well, first of all, you need to apply to the jobs. So in Waterloo, we have this thing called Waterloo Works, which is a job portal and where all the jobs are posted. So we were allowed to apply to 50 applications in the first cycle. And after the first cycle, then I forgot how many we're allowed to apply to, but we're allowed to apply to more. You can also choose to apply externally rather than through Waterloo Works. But those applications are typically harder. And Waterloo Works is for like companies who specifically want to hire Waterloo students, which is why they post on Waterloo Works. So if you post externally, it's like a lot larger field and it will be harder to get a job. So after you apply to jobs, some of the companies will come and offer you an interview. And how the interview works, there are generally 4 different types of questions that they ask. The first one is behavioral. So that would be a question like, tell me a time you had a conflict with a teammate. And with these questions, they're generally checking how you act in the workplace and what your personality is like. The second type is resume-related questions. So if you have any side projects on your resume, like my chess project, for example, they might ask about that. They might ask like, oh, how did you implement the thing that you implemented? And what are some trade-offs based on the way you implemented it? The third type is just a regular coding problem. This type is probably the most common, and a good place to practice that is lead code. And the fourth type of interview question is just general knowledge problems. So for example, they may ask you, like in JavaScript, what is object destructuring? Like those questions are just to test how well you are, how well you're versed in technologies that they use. And generally the companies that ask these questions are companies that they have like a very specific technology stack, and they want you to be familiar with that stack before you go in. And the third part, after you're done your interview, this is a pretty Waterloo specific thing, but you'll get ranking. So what the company will do is, with all of the people that they interview, they'll give them a ranking, like 1 to 8 or something. And then also you will have to rank the companies that you apply to. These two rankings, it goes through an algorithm and matches you to a job. So yeah, that's how the interview process works, and that's how you get matched with a job. So in my first internship, I worked at a company called Oanda, and my work was pretty much backend API development using Python and SQL, and I was on the shared services team. And what we do is we manage users and account creation and login and those kinds of things. So in my workplace, we use a methodology called Agile Development. And the idea behind that is we want to deliver small features quickly. So every 2 weeks, we have a thing called a sprint. And a sprint is basically a collection of tasks that we need to get done within that 2 weeks. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, we have a demo where everyone shows off what they accomplished. And we have releases where our work gets pushed into production. So there are 4 types of work that mainly I did. So the first type is development. That's like making new features, the fun stuff, like implementing different things. And there's also maintenance, which is like bug fixes, or like if someone notices a problem and you need to fix that problem. The third thing is review/testing. So review is like doing code reviews. The way that Wando works is before you need, when you make a pull request, 2 reviews in order for that pull request to get merged. So yeah, everybody on the team is reviewing each other's code to make sure they're good to go before things get pushed into production. And testing is obviously necessary to make sure that the thing you're making is working before it gets pushed into production. And lastly, we have meetings. So every day at 9:30, we have stand-up. At stand-up, we basically talk about what we did during the previous day, usually pretty short, and just to make sure everyone is on track. And more interesting, there's also types of meetings where we discuss design choices. Like, for example, how should we implement this thing? What are the trade-offs between different ways we can implement it? And I find these discussions very interesting, a lot just from listening to more experienced people. Okay, so next I'll talk about what I learned during my first internship. So the first thing that was important was I had to be curious and ask questions. Because when I first got into the internship, I didn't know anything. Like I was pretty confused with like how they ran things and like the technologies they're using, libraries they're using. So I had to sort of figure a lot of things out myself and also ask questions. I was stuck like quite a bit. So also try to learn as much as you can from the company, because problems are skill than problems you can solve. And that skill is a thing you can learn from a lot. Like you're not gonna have like alone your project's gonna have 1 million users, but within a company you might have a problem So those problems are things you can also learn when you're part of a company and you have all of this weaponry weaponry to deal with. Okay. The second thing is communicating with your supervisor. So that's things like, are you getting too much work, too little work, or happy with the type of work you're doing? Like for me in my internship, I felt like I was getting too little work, but I was constantly telling myself I was doing tasks, and I was telling them that I wanted to do new tasks, more interesting tasks. And yeah, communicating your concerns is very important to make sure you're making the most out of your internship. And the last point is to ask for feedback frequently. So for me, I had one-on-one meetings with my supervisor every 2 weeks. And during those meetings, I would ask him how I'm doing, am I doing well, and places I can improve. And having this feedback like really helps you make sure you're on the right track and doing the right things. And yeah, that is all I wanted to talk about today. So does anyone have any questions for me?
那个电话没发给我啊？
Okay.
什么？还没，还得10多分钟。你也过来了是吧？
能静音一下自己吗？好，我们现在是问答环节，然后有问题的话可以举手或者打在 chat box 里面，可以用中文提问，然后我们会帮忙翻译。
Jason 问：考前滑铁卢有学习 AP 课程吗？
Oh, yeah. So for AP courses, I'm not sure. Like in my application, they didn't ask about it anywhere, but I did do APs. I did, I think, physics C, both physics C's, chemistry, math, calculus, stats, and chemistry. I think. I'm not sure if I missed any, but yeah, I did do some APs. I'm not sure if it helps too much getting into Waterloo, but it will definitely help getting into like American universities. And doing it is also fun. I feel like just learning university level content in high school is like, yeah, it improves your general knowledge, and it's always a great thing to do. Is your chess bot fast enough to handle blitz? Probably not, because every move takes like probably 5 seconds, and you don't want to be using 5 seconds on every move.
Hello, Brian.
Hi.
So, when was the last time you played the trumpet?
When was the last time I played the trumpet? I think it was around 3 weeks ago, so I've been not playing very much. But yeah, I just play like whenever I feel like. It's hard to like have a consistent schedule of practicing trumpet, especially since I'm like my main instrument is piano. Yeah. Okay, is there any topics to focus specifically on? Wait, can you elaborate on that question, please? Okay, I'll just go to the next question for now. But Jason, for the question, is there? Oh. For the question, yeah, I'm not sure. There's like a lot of topics. I'm not sure what you mean by topics. Like there's a lot of things you can be focusing on. So I'll just go for the next question until I get more elaboration. So any tips to get in a good uni, what to do from high school? For tips, I would just say, don't worry too much about it and just do whatever you find fun. Because at the end of the day, you're not trying to learn in order to get into a good university. You're trying to learn in order to improve yourself. So like, and in the process of improving yourself, you are better preparing yourself for university. So that's the mindset that I had throughout high school. Like when I did the AP courses I didn't do it to get into university. I just did it because I thought let's like just try and challenge myself a bit. And I really enjoyed the content that I was learning. So yeah, that has basically been my attitude the whole time. And it's also good because if you do everything only for university and at the end you don't get into the university you want, then you might think like, oh, what has everything been for, you know? So yeah, a good mindset to have is just do whatever you enjoy and try to find new opportunities where you can improve yourself. So maybe I missed this, but how much volunteer work is recommended for your application? For me, I just tried to volunteer like in different things I was interested in. So for example, I volunteered to teach piano for a bit. I also played piano at senior homes, and also I led some clubs which had some benefit concerts and stuff, which was pretty cool. So I'm not sure that I can say a specific number for how much volunteer work is needed, but yeah, just volunteer whenever you can or have time. And yeah, that would probably be good. Okay, so Jason specified apart from CS and maths, so which topics to focus on? I think physics is good. Like in Waterloo, the first year physics courses were definitely not that easy. And doing AP Physics C really helped me get through them. So physics is important. I think chemistry is also important because all the natural sciences are important, honestly. And also English. Like English, you might think like it's not a STEM subject, but also like communicating, being able to write and communicate effectively is also an important skill to have in university. How are clubs in the university being organized? So usually the clubs are student organized. So a student would just be like, have something they're passionate about and create a club. But also for the engineering design teams, it's usually the leader is a student, but also there are professors that are connected to it. So like for example, in my autonomous vehicle team, the leader is, I think, a master's student from Waterloo who is doing his thesis right now. So he's trying to use this design team for his research. So yeah, regular clubs are led by students, and engineering design teams, like the leader is a student, but there's also profs connected to it. For AP courses, did you learn at your high school, study by yourself, study after school learning center, or any suggestions for taking AP exams? So yeah, in my school, there were not that many AP courses, so most of my APs were self-studied. I had a tutor for my AP physics course, and for all the rest of them, I just studied it by myself. But also in school, I also did some, like for AP stats I think AP stats is the only AP I did in school. But for suggestions for taking AP exams, I would say just like study and make sure you're understanding everything well. It's the same stuff I would say for like in the university courses that I mentioned. Like be resilient and make sure you're understanding the concepts very well. And yeah, although AP courses, like in order to get a 5, it's actually not that hard because usually like for most APs, if you get like 70 or 80, it's already a 5. So you don't actually need to understand everything super well, but it's always good to understand it well, is what I'm gonna say. Okay, Cordy says, did you do on-campus housing or off-campus housing? I did on-campus housing. And yeah, that's what I was saying about everyone being close together, because on campus, you're close to a lot of students and it's easier to be social. For the AP exams, what should we focus on the most? Depends on the field you're going into, and like, okay, probably most people here are going into CS, but I'd say focus on whatever you enjoy. That's number 1. But number 2, I would say I really like doing physics and chemistry. Oh, also stats. Stats is important for computer science if you want to go into data science or you know. Okay, Daphne's is in Chinese. Can't read that. So,
The question, Brian?
Yeah.
First of all, can everyone turn off, whoever's not speaking, please turn off their mics. Daphne asks, interview 主要关于什么的？很重要吗？
Wait, which interview are you talking about? Like the interview?
Brian.
Oh yeah.
Brian?
Yeah.
And there a little bit echo.
Oh.
Your mic. Can you fix it?
Sure, I'll turn my volume off. Is it still echoing? Wait, is it better now? Hello.
Julia，现在还有这个 echo 吗？
要看那个 Brian 的 Brian 说话，我们听一听。
Hello, testing.
好像好一点了。谢谢。
Okay. Right. Okay, so I guess I'll answer Daphne's question for both the interviews that I talked about. So as for the Waterloo application interview, they're just asking you, like for me, the questions they asked me is like why I wanted to go into the program that I applied to. And also I think they asked me what makes me prepared for the program that I applied to. And I think it's important in the sense that it's definitely another part of the application, but it's not as important as your grades, and your grades are the most important. But one caveat is like, if you're applying to Waterloo software engineering or like a competitive program, everyone's gonna have good grades. So like the interview might be the thing that sets you apart. So it is important in that sense. Charles asks, what is roughly the project pace at your company? At my company, the pace was, I thought it was pretty okay. Like, as I said, at first I thought it was a bit slow when I was getting too little work, but as I asked my manager for more work and more interesting work, it got better, and yeah, it's been a pretty good pace ever since that. Specifically, like I wouldn't say I'm working for like super hard for the full 8 hours. It's definitely like pretty chill, like relax a bit and work, like a chilled 8 hours of work is what I'd say the pace is. Jason asked, are things like music, sports, and stuff important for applications? I say if you if you're passionate about music or sports or anything, it's definitely helpful, but don't try to force it. Like if you hate music, like don't try to do music just for the application. Like these extracurriculars should be things that you're passionate about and things that you want to do rather than doing it just for university. Aiden asked, when, what grade, and how did you decide your major? After that, which university did you decide to go? Which factors did you consider in helping you to decide your major and the university? I think I decided my major pretty late, actually, around probably grade 11, I'd say. I decided I wanted to go into CS. Like before, like I'd say grade 10 and below, I actually considered going into music. But then, and like in my higher years, I focused on math and CS more. So I was like, oh, why not just do a major in like CS? And after that, which university did I decide to go? Well, I decided to go to University of Waterloo. And the factors that helped me decide my major and university, it's like Waterloo is the best university in Canada, so, or like in my opinion. So there's that. And also the co-op program is really good. Gives me real industry experience, having 6 internships before I graduate. And also the people there are great. Like everybody there is really hardworking and motivated, and having that studying environment really helps me motivate myself. Charles asked, do they ask knowledge questions or lead code in interviews? Well, I'd say it depends on the company. I think lead code questions are more common, but you may get asked knowledge questions. Like, yeah, companies can sort of do whatever they want there. Since are you perhaps near EB Hall? Oh yeah, I lived in CMH, which is probably like in the same rectangle as EB Hall. Wait, do you know it? Have you been there before? Oh, that's nice. Oh wait, but in second year, I'm not living on campus anymore. That's sad. Yeah, it's okay. You can enjoy your first year on campus experience.
If no one, oh.
What are the things that are most helpful from high school? Okay, I actually thought about this a lot. So I think the most important thing that helped me going into high school is, in high school, I learned how to struggle, if that makes sense. Because if I think about it, in high school, like I was never one of these like super smart kids who just knew how to do everything. Like every time I had to try something new, it was always a challenge for me. So having that mentality of like knowing what to do when I'm lost and I don't know how to continue is really helped me when I went into university. Because like in university, it's also like at first you don't know what you're doing, but if you know how to struggle, you'll be able to like navigate that field a bit better, and you'll know how to sort of pick yourself up when you're not necessarily doing the best. And if you're looking for like specific things that were helpful, I think doing physics was helpful, because I know a lot of people who struggle in physics because they didn't know how to do it. But like since I did a lot of physics in high school, like I thought the courses weren't that bad. What grade did I do my AP exams? Most of them were in grade 11. I did one in grade 10 and one in grade 12. And I think I did 5 in grade 11. So yeah. Have I ever regretted not going into other majors? Right now, no, but I guess we'll find out. I hope I don't regret not going into other majors.
If no one else has any questions, I do have a couple of questions. Firstly, Brian, for example, how long does your chess project take, or how long does like these projects usually take you to make?
The chess project took me 1 summer, I'd say, but I wasn't going at it like all the time for that summer. It was more like I worked on it like 1 hour, or like, I don't know, just whenever I felt like it every day. And yeah, and for my design teams, if that's also what you were asking about, the projects we do there usually take a lot longer. Like, for example, this autonomous vehicle has been in the workings for like 4 to 5 years now. And yeah.
Secondly, how are the design teams organized? Are they organized by professors or students, or is it like a university funded project or something?
Yes, it is university funded. The organizer is usually a student. Like, the student is the person who gets the idea of having a design team and wants to create it. But they also have like professors for advising, and it's sort of like high school clubs where you have a sponsored teacher, except this time like the sponsored teacher or professor needs to actually know what the design team is doing. And yeah, for like the autonomous vehicle team, we actually have like our own server rack, and we have our own like computers. That's how we're able to like run these simulations and do development basically.
Lastly, do you have any studying tips for everyone?
Do I have any studying tips? So in university, I'd say I studied most of the things that I did during my my slide about what I learned in university. So if we go back to, it's okay, we're not going to go back. So what I said is learn actively, to make sure you're always thinking when you're learning and understanding the things thoroughly. The second thing is managing your time, making sure you're always being productive and not wasting too much time. Third thing is managing your environment, making sure that basically the study space you have is good, you're taking care of your health, and you're taking care of your eating and sleeping. And last thing is resilience, and being able to not give up. And yeah. Okay. So Charles says, if your chess project is in your internship, how long would it take you? If it was, well, it wasn't in my internship. I did it in my own time, and it took me a summer. Like, I'm not sure what this means. If it, oh, you're saying if I had to work on it 8 hours a day, how long would it take me? I actually don't know. Also, when I did this project, I was pretty inexperienced, so it probably took longer than it should have. Oh, the amount of work compared to my I don't think it could be compared in that way, because in the co-op, it's usually like just doing tasks that my supervisor gives me. But this project is like something that I had to build from beginning to end. And that's something that I didn't get to do in co-op. So it's sort of hard for me to compare. Do I do my work on, wait, Cordy says, do you work on code and do your homework on your bed or using a desk. Well, I do it on a desk. I don't know how you would do stuff in the bed, because actually I guess you can, but yeah, I use a desk. Okay, yeah, I think that's all the questions that were in chat.
Does anyone else have any questions? Huh. If not, I guess we're done for today.